As we have seen before, variables provide many upsides to writing efficient code because they allow us to store a value which can be used at many places in our code. We have variables with multiple data types like int, double, and string, which each provide some unique functionality in a Java program. However, a downside to these variables is that we can only store one value. If we wanted to store fruits and vegetables that we bought at the grocery store yesterday in variables, we would have to create multiple strings where each variable represents one item. So if I bought 5 items, my code would probably look like this. However, if we were shopping during a situation such as for a big party at your house, and we were buying like 100 items at once, imagine how many variables we would have to create. However, Java allows us to store a bunch of values in a one data structure, which we call arrays. Arrays allow us to store any amount of values in one data structure. Let's go back to the grocery store example. When I shopped for 5 items, or created 5 different string variables, I had 5 different items, each accessing their own individual value. An array allows me to be more streamlined with these values and turn it into one-dimensional table or group. As you can see here, all of the variables are in one row, and the data is combined and organized. It's like we have a shopping list, and a Java array represents this list or table as a whole. Now you may be wondering, how do I access or get any of these values? In Java, we do this by using indices to label each item. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 each represent an index corresponding to an item numbered from left to right. And together, the numbers are called indices as a plural term. One thing you might be noticing is that we are starting from index 0 to represent the first element. The first element has an index of 0, and the index of the last element is 1 less than the length of the array. This might seem weird at first, but you'll get used to it as we start to use arrays in our code frequently. So while in math you learn to start to count from 1, in computer science you have to remember to start counting from 0. So now let's take a look at how to implement arrays in a Java program. Here I've got everything set up in my Java program that I've called shopping list. In this main method, I want to create my array of grocery items. So this is what a structure of an array looks like. I'm still going to comment out just so that you can see the structure of an array in general. So 2 backslashes, I'm going to type data type, so that's the data type of the array we're trying to create. So for example, we have an array of ints, strings, or doubles. And this means that an array can only hold values of one data type. We cannot have one array with both ints and strings inside. It can either be all ints or all strings. Then you type 2 brackets, and then the variable name of the array, which can be anything, so I'm going to call it array name, equals new data type, same data type as the first, bracket, length of the array, bracket, semicolon. So this length will always be an integer or an int because you can't have half of an element to represent an index. Also, you can't change the length of an array later in the program. It can only be changed by changing it right here. So let's say that in the context of this shopping list Java file, we're creating an array called groceries, where each element is a grocery item that will be stored in a string. Since each element in the array will be a string, we type string to start off our array. Then we type 2 square brackets. Now we call it array any variable. I'm just going to call it groceries equals new, and our data type has to be string. Then I'm probably going to buy 5 items from the grocery, so the length of my array is just going to be 5. And the bracket semicolon. There you go, we're done with declaring and initializing our array. So basically we've created that 1x5 table that we've seen previously. However, right now, with the statement that we have right here, each cell or index doesn't access any string grocery item. It doesn't access anything. So to give each element a value, by calling an index of the array, it would look like this. So I'm going to comment 2 backslashes array name, so the variable name of your array, then the index value as an integer equals value. And value is the one you're going to set the index with. So based on my current scenario with shopping, I want to give the first element in my array a value of tomatoes. We can do this by typing groceries, bracket 0, and bracket equals tomatoes. So remember that the first element has index 0, and if you think you can do the rest, pause this video and give values of different grocery items to the other elements of the array. Alright, if you're able to do it, great job. So let's walk through doing this. Since the second element has index 1, I have to type groceries 1 equals bananas. Then we continue on with this. So groceries 2 equals apples. Groceries 3 equals kiwis. Finally, groceries 4 equals juice. Now you might be thinking that you typed a lot more than you needed to, and you're exactly right. Luckily, there's an alternative way to create an array where you have all the predetermined values in the initialization of the array. So you would type string, 2 brackets, list2, so still the same declaration as before, equals 2 curly braces and a semicolon. So between the curly braces, I'm going to put my items. So I'm going to put tomatoes, comma, bananas, comma, apples, comma, kiwis, comma, and finally juice. So the array declaration is still the same. However, initializing the array is different because we already gave a value to each element of the array. All in all, both results are still the same. So now let's try to print out each of these values using system.out.println. In order to do this, we have to gain access to each value, which can be used by typing the array name, bracket, index number. So it's like the same thing again. So to print out the first value, we can type system.out.println groceries 0. And then we can go on to print out the rest of the value. So I'm going to copy this statement, paste it below, change it to 1, paste it below again, change it to 2, paste it below, change it to 3, paste it again, change it to 4. And on the top of all this code, I'm going to put a system.out.println you bought 5 groceries. And now let's run our code. So save the code, come here, compile the code, and run the code. And there you go, we get our expected result. You bought 5 groceries at the top, and in order it's tomatoes, bananas, apples, kiwis, and juice. And let's say hypothetically, if we bought 10 items instead of 5, we would have to change the length of the array right here to 10. Then we have to change the statement to you bought 5 groceries to you bought 10 groceries. So this would get kind of tedious, and so just to show you guys something cool, one way to fix this is by using the length attribute of the array. It's sort of like when strings had methods, but an array has attributes, not methods. So we can type int num equals groceries.length. Num is the number of elements in the groceries array, which is 5. So we can change the line right here. I'm going to get rid of the quotation right here, put it over here, plus groceries.length plus, and then a start quotation for that other string. So now if we run our code, the statement on the top now says you bought 10 groceries. Of course, I didn't take the time to fill in the rest of the 5 groceries. They don't have a value, and you can fill in those values for yourself. But my main point is that if we change the length of the array to 20, and if we compile and run the code, the result here should say you bought 20 groceries. So this is why an array length is more beneficial than just hard coding that length value. So it's just nice to know that the length attribute is there when possible. Remember that arrays allow us to store any amount of values in one data structure, which can be useful because then you don't have to create multiple variables to store multiple values. And the length attribute is useful to place in statements, and we will see a key function of the length attribute when we learn loops soon in the next big idea. So for now, don't worry about loops yet, but see you in the next tutorial.